Go to BudLight.com/perfect draft for your chance to win $15 million if you can predict the perfect first round. This is the University Hospital's Cleveland Browns Radio Network. Here again, Ken Carman and Nathan Zegura.
Welcome back to the Draft Preview Show presented by Bud Light on the University Hospital's Cleveland Browns Radio Network. Nathan Zegura joined by the general manager of your Browns, Andrew Berry. And AB, here we are. Draft week. Yeah. Finally, so much work has gone in. You opened your comments thanking the area scouts and everything that in your group, all the time people have put in to get to this moment. Is there kind of a sense of relief that it's here?
I'd say probably less a sense of relief and more a sense of both calm and excitement simultaneously. It's actually this week's actually a little bit slower. It's a little bit hurry up and wait as everybody comes back into the building. And really we're finalizing the undrafted free agent process. But everyone's excited for the weekend and looking forward to who the newest Browns are going to be.
We're certainly excited about that. And for the Browns, this draft doesn't start, at least as of today, until the second round pick number 44. Now, I was going back and remembering you haven't picked where you're supposed to pick at any point in the second round in your two drafts. This will be your third. The first time you move back, still get Grant Delpit, and then Nick Harris is a bonus there, who's now going to be the center for the Cleveland Browns. And then last year you move up to get Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Is there something about the second round that makes it easy to maneuver up and down, what you've done in your 2 years?
I wouldn't say that there's anything specific to the second round. We just try and take advantage of opportunities as they present themselves to us over draft weekend. So that could really be any round of the draft.
Have you guys upgraded the simulation protocol? Because I was told last year we went through 1 million simulations, and yet none of them produce reality, which is Greg Newsome and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. So have we upgraded this to account for even those things we consider unfathomable?
Hey, we will see today. Today is actually our simulation day, and I'll have a better answer for you in the press conference after the draft than I do today.
Okay. So walk us through that. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, so we spent much of the last week really just talking through strategies at each of the different pick slots that we have. And then today it's kind of both it's a good kind of draft room operations test run as well as a little bit of like team building with our area scouts in where we run through maybe, I don't know exact number, we went through a lot of mock draft simulations where some will be scripted, some will be off the cuff, some will be randomized so that with the group that's in the draft room or operating in the draft room, it forces us to react to different situations as they arise, whether it's a fortunate situation at the time that we're picking at 44 or 78 or 99 or wherever that may be, or an unfortunate situation or weighing trades. And it's less about the actual specific sequence of players,
sure,
but more about the types of general situations that you're trying to tease out. So maybe it's a run on a certain position, or maybe it's an underpriced trade offer, or maybe it's an opportunity to move up or back by a large amount to really kind of tease out those preferences.
Has there been a situation that came up in these simulations in either of the last two drafts that actually then kind of happened, and so you were like, oh, we were hoping this happened, and then here it is?
Yeah, so actually several, to be honest with you. So
that's good.
Yeah,
in the future, you got a crystal ball.
Yeah, so the situation in 2020 with Grant, kind of a small move back, and we had a number of players that we liked at that spot. That was one. When we moved back to take Jordan Elliott and added a future third-round pick in that same draft, that was another. And then even last year with Jeremiah, even though we weren't considering him as the player that might
sure.
be the faller, we run through a number of different scenarios where we had a group of players that we thought had some potential to go later than perhaps how we had valued them, and we had kind of worked through what we would call small move-up pricing that would make us comfortable executing such a move. We didn't know it would be for Jeremiah at the time, but it helped us be prepared on draft day.
Because your first pick is slated at 44, do we kind of like sim the first round, so we go through that very quickly and then the scenario kind of starts in the second round, or do you go through as you would have last year when you did have a pick in the first round?
No, we go through pretty quickly if we're not, it's not like we're going to spend 20 minutes going through the sure. top 10, and there may be call it 15 players where you have pretty good indication that they're going to go well before your pick, so you may start the draft at 15 or 20 or 25, something along those lines, just to save time.
All right, this is something I always find fascinating because I think people, you look at 7 rounds and 30-plus picks per round, and the fact that 200-plus players are going to get drafted, that everybody's got 200-plus players on their draft mm-hmm. board. And I always think it's interesting how many people are actually on the draft board. So Ballpark, can you ballpark for us how many guys are actually on the draft?
Yeah, it's usually anywhere from 100 to 125 for us.
Okay.
And I think part of it is just because the draft board, particularly once you get to the third round across the league, it diverges pretty significantly. Because usually at that point in the draft, you're talking about guys that may profile as role players or backups or developmental prospects, and that might be a little bit more organizational or scheme specific, based on the traits that you may prioritize.
How important is it, you mentioned kind of those late day three guys, we'll call them. How important is it to find people that can help your organization in those rounds? And I'll talk Donovan Peoples-Jones, the 6th rounders contributed, Demetric Felton last year, Nick Harris, a 5th rounder, now looking like your starting center. Given the way salaries work, the salary cap, to be able to have some of that, what I would call very well-priced labor for the organization.
Yeah, any time that you can find a contributor on a rookie deal, it helps out your team from a talent standpoint, and it helps out your team from a long-term planning perspective because of the positive impact that it has on the salary cap. So those guys are key. They don't necessarily have to be stars or starters for them to provide value, but those picks are very, very important.
I want to ask you, you're talking about some of the exercises you guys do, and Depot shared this with us last year, was that at some point, I don't know if you've done this yet, again this year, or if you're going to do it again this year, and I may not have it exactly right, but that you would go around and it'd be everybody on the draft board, give me somebody that you would absolutely pound the table for, you'd have to have, and somebody who's on the board that you personally are like, that's not my guy. Mm-hmm. And that when you went around, basically, there was a lot of similarity on guys that were liked, but then also guys that people didn't like, to kind of show that at the end of the day, the only person, and I think what he said the line was, the only person in here that's going to draft somebody that they're not 100% against is you. Mm-hmm. Was that a cool exercise and just kind of eye-opening to see that how many great football minds can see, and probably why the draft's so hard, right? Because so many people can see things so differently.
Honestly, it's a little bit of an illustration. So what we did with that information, we said, okay, if we had to build a draft board where it was only players that had received, call it multiple votes as, hey, one of the players that people would be most excited to acquire, and multiple votes where least excited to acquire. If we eliminated those, and it would be like a draft board of 24 players, something along those lines. So it's a little bit more of an example to say, hey, the draft is hard and diverges pretty quickly. Like, take as much input as possible, but there are going to be guys that, even internally, people are more enthusiastic about or less enthusiastic about when you take them. And that's not a function of not listening or whatever, but just the player pool of like true quote-unquote consensus players is very small, not only across the NFL, but even within buildings.
When you get to that true, let's call it those 24, are they typically first rounders, or does it sometimes surprise that like they can be guys that are middle round guys?
No, they're usually the high picks. Okay. That's typically how it goes.
That makes it a little easier, right? Otherwise, right? If there were no warts, you would be going early. Mm-hmm. What do you do on Thursday night? How do you approach a Thursday night? And I've some of the other GMs who do, because this is a unique draft. Right? I think there are 8 teams with multiple first-round picks, 7 that don't have, both highest in NFL history. And I think in Miami, you guys said, we're just going to watch Tyreek Hill highlights. What are you going to do kind of during the first round? How do you approach that knowing that you don't have a pick and that it would be not difficult, not impossible, but challenging probably to figure out a way to get into the first round if you're so inclined?
I mean, you really still monitor it. So number one, you'll still spend time with your scouts and your staff, and certainly watch the draft. And some things do become actionable, certainly like later in the round. But the other thing is it's not just picks that move during the draft. Sometimes it's players as well. So you really just really trying to be plugged in. Unlikely that we'll make a major decision on Thursday night, but you can't completely unplug.
You can't rule it out. You can't rule it out. How often does the phone ring, or do you make calls? Just we'll take it on a day we'll call it a Friday in the draft. Like, some people think it's frantic. Oh, call them, trade this, do that. What's it actually like?
So it's usually pretty calm until maybe 5 to 7 slots before you pick. I would say, honestly, as a matter of practice, either taking a call or making a call, probably like every pick through maybe like through the 4th round. Like as I think back to drafts, there probably hasn't been a pick in the first 3 rounds where we haven't taken a call or made a call. So it's the trade activity is usually pretty frequent. That's not always the case, but within the top 4 rounds, usually there's a fair amount of activity.
Whenever the phone rings, you kind of is it like a little jolt of excitement, like, oh man, what could be coming right here?
It kind of becomes par from the course at this point. So,
okay. And is it usually a quick no, like, yeah, thanks?
No, you'd be surprised. Like,
Okay.
you'd be surprised because part of it is you're trying to play out a number of different scenarios based on how the next several picks may fall. But again, that's why we try and sort through as much of that as possible last week, today, so you have a framework in place, so you're not really emotional during that time and you're organized.
We know you've been doing salary cap since you as a young man, which I know that you love this, but were you also doing drafts back then? I mean, I used to do Stratomatic with my dad. We would break up the whole NFL. We would draft the guys back out. Is that something that you always did as a young man as well?
That's something I don't think so. I mean, you probably have to ask my parents for that one, but I don't. That's not anything I remember really doing.
All right, what are you most looking forward to over the next 3 days?
Really probably just having everybody in who's worked so hard over the past, 14 or 15 months. I feel like we've done a lot of really good work, and we're certainly excited about adding good players, but it's one of the few times, aside from camp, veteran mini camp as well, that that we really get to spend time together. And so it's kind of a great point in the year because so many people have made so many sacrifices to make the weekend successful.
And I'll go back to where I started, talking about those area scouts, and you mentioned also that there's a lot of undrafted free agent work, and I think everybody knows the draft, but the undrafted portion, you can end up with a guy like A.J. Green, who's been very good for us. That's kind of a recruitment period. I know it's something you're very excited about. What is it about that period? Because people say, well, they didn't even get drafted, but sometimes there's reasons for that, and you end up getting really good players there. That's kind of the draft after the draft. What do you love about that?
I think it's similar to how you operate in the late rounds, because you realize that, the probability would say that, the overwhelming majority, probably won't work out over a long period of time. Some may not make it out of camp, some may make it on the practice squad and then maybe fizzle out a little bit. But the reality is the impact of even just one guy, making it over a multi-year period, and the impact that can have on your team from a performance and salary cap perspective, really kind of makes it worthwhile. It is a little bit of like kind of finding a needle in a haystack,
sure,
so to speak. But if you have a strong CFA class, it's something that can really help you over the long term. Again, even if they're not necessarily stars on your team.
AB, always a pleasure. Excited to see what you're going to do here over the next few days, and as always, happy that you're the one leading this organization to put that best roster on the field and get ready for the 2022 season.
Appreciate you for having me, Nate.
All right, that's the Browns general manager, Andrew Berry. You're listening to the Draft Preview Show presented by Bud Light, all along the University Hospital's Cleveland Browns radio network.
Here again, Ken Carman and Nathan Zegura.
Tonight's show presented by Bud Light. Go to budlight.com/perfectdraft for your chance to win $15 million if you can correctly predict the entire first round of this year's NFL draft. That's a lot of cash.
That's a lot of catch. And you will have earned it if you can go
Yes,
32
you will
for
have.
32.
No one can tell you didn't just win it. You earned it, my
That's right.
friend. Let's go to the hotline and welcome in one of the finest. And if you can see us right now on the YouTube channel, which you can,
Good
folks,
thing I'm doing that workout. So
this is what they
hold
call
this thing up.
this is what they call the beast. You have to do one of those Joe Thomas workouts to pick this thing up. Like, that's how big this thing is. This is called the Beast, and it's by Dane Brugler. He does this annually, and this is just a fountain of information.
Nearly
every
300
year.
pages.
Yes. Dane Brugler joins us on the show right now. Dane, good evening, friend.
Happy draft week, guys. How are you?
It's the same to you. Dane, tell us where we can find the Beast. Where can people find the Beast? Real quick. Go ahead.
All you need to do is be an athletic subscriber.
That's it.
And it's included as part of your subscription. So hopefully people go check it out. And if you like to draft at all, you will not be disappointed.
You get all this. Look, I mean, if you guys can see this on the YouTube channel, this is just outstanding. This whole
You will know everything
document
about everybody who is drafted, and you will literally know everything about them. And this isn't like my master's thesis where I used a very generous font to hit the page limit. This is a very tiny font. This is 300 pages.
You had a master's
of a
thesis?
Oh yeah, sure.
How long was it?
Like it'd be like 200 pages, something like that. I hear some Courier New though, no big deal.
Dane, the longest paper I ever wrote, 26 pages, University of Akron. It's the Akron
Nice.
Advantage, Luis Parenza. Yeah, well, I didn't need you to say nice. I was just saying, just for my own personal
I like
edification.
Dane's a positive guy.
He is. All right, Dane, it's a weird draft. It's not the star-studded event of drafts past of the quarterback situation. There's been several people that are like, hey, there's a lot of guys moving up over the last few months. So, let's just start there. It's the most popular one, and then we're going to get right to the Browns here. How do you think this quarterback class shakes out in this first round?
It's really tough. And, you talk to people around the league, and they all kind of say the same thing, like, oh, these guys are going to go, they're going to go. And then it's like, okay, well, where do you think they're going to go? And it's, I'm not sure. That's why it's tough, is because no one has a great feel. When's that first quarterback off the board? When's that run start? I don't think a quarterback goes 6 to Carolina. Would Seattle at 9 be tempted? Is it possible the first quarterback doesn't come off the board until 20 in the Steelers? And, would the Steelers be tempted to move up a little bit to get their guy? So, I mean, if I'm doing a mock draft right now, good chance I don't have a quarterback in the first 19 picks until Kenny Pickett at number 20. So it's really going to be interesting. Last year, we knew quarterbacks were going 1, 2, 3. We knew Justin Fields was going to go somewhere top 12, and we knew Mac Jones likely somewhere top 15. This year, we have no clue on any of these quarterbacks, how they're going to fall, and it makes it really tough to forecast the first round with any position in any team. So it's just going to be a really fun first round Thursday night.
So real quick, you got Kenny Pickett going number 20 to Pittsburgh, huh?
If you ask me right now, I mean, maybe I could change my mind in 20 minutes. But right now, that's what I would say. And I think that Pickett is their top quarterback as we enter draft week. But if there's a chance Pickett could go ahead of him, ahead of where the Steelers are picking, and there's always a chance that they'd go with a different quarterback. But based off of what I was been told, based on what other teams think, they think there's a good chance that Pickett is the top guy for the Steelers, and he could be there at 20.
Hate to dislike him as a fan because I like both he and Malik Willis. I love Malik Willis's attitude, and it'd be like, well, if they went there, obviously I can't be a fan of it. Let's talk about the Browns and pick 44 here. Nathan, you had some interesting things to say. You thought 98% it could go defensive end, an edge rusher, if you will, or also a wide receiver.
Yeah, one of those two.
Dane, you got the same thing there. Do you think that?
Yeah, that makes the most sense. I think that you want to get somebody that's going to make an impact, and those two positions, whether you're creating disruption off the edge or you're helping score points at receiver, I mean that's ideally what you're looking for. And I think a big part of it will depend on who's there, obviously, in terms of which position they go after. How many wide receivers are off the board in the first 40 picks? How many edge rushers? That'll probably be the two most drafted positions in the first 40 picks this year, I'd say without a doubt. And so who's left out of those two positions, and who do the Browns have ranked higher? And would the Browns be tempted to maybe use one of those third-rounders, go up 5, 6, 7 spots in the second round just to ensure that they get their guy? Because, again, we're going to see a run. And then once everybody goes home Thursday night and on Friday when it kind of reset things, Browns might be tempted a little bit to move up just to get their guy. And for the right player, I think it makes some sense.
Talk with Dane Brugler, the draft expert at The Athletic. Get his beast. It is absolutely must-have while you're watching the draft. See who the Browns draft. Learn everything possible there is to know about them immediately. It's all right here for you. Let's talk receivers. Let's talk edge 44. And, Dane, it feels like we'll start with a guy I know we've talked a little bit about, George Pickens at receiver, if he was a guy maybe there at 44. Talent is there coming out the injury, but you're hearing a lot of stuff come out that maturity issues, maybe not the most coachable guy. What are you kind of hearing with Pickens, and how does this all kind of work out with where he's going to go and what kind of environment you would need to have to draft him?
Immaturity definitely is something that came up multiple times when doing research on him, both on and off the field. It's something that he's a young player, just turned 21 years old, and he acts like a young player. And that's something that teams will have to take into account. And that's part of the reason why there's, I think, a decent chance Pickens will still be available at pick 44. And so Browns have to do their due diligence if they're going to have Pickens on their draft board in terms of is he a guy that you want brought to your locker room? Do you have the veterans in your wide receiver room that you feel comfortable bringing a young guy in there and someone that you think you can develop? Once the coaches get involved, what are their thoughts? And so there's a lot going on with a player like this who has talent, no doubt about it. He has wide receiver one potential. A guy that's 6'3", 200 pounds, graceful athlete, outstanding 50-50 skills. But that's not the whole story. It's a complicated prospect who has a little bit of boom or bust to him.
When you look at this draft in the edge rushers, and two things, 44, who are some names to pay attention to? And then how do you think it factors in Brown specifically, knowing what you know about Andrew Berry, that, for example, in your top 10 edge rushers, Jermaine Johnson, 23.31 in terms of age. Boye Mafe, 23.41. Dominique Robinson, 23.82. And I skipped over Ebiketie, Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State, 23.26. Are those guys that, while they may be very talented, do you think they're likely maybe not on a Browns board at that age because of COVID, and some guys who, have stayed into college a little bit longer than perhaps we're seeing these redshirt seniors?
I think so. I mean, it's in the past it's been mostly first rounders, but I think that extends to second round too. They want younger players. This is a regime and a franchise that truly believes age matters when it comes to the draft, and that's it's debatable. I mean, it's something that we could certainly have a conversation about, but there's so many layers involved. But I think it's something that it doesn't matter what we think. I think it's something this team really believes in. And so if an Arnold Ebiketie comes off the board at 38, there might be some Browns fans, we just missed him. But he probably maybe is not a guy that they're really considering because of that age. That's just a factor. And so I tell you, one of the interesting players that I'll be watching for is George Karloftis out of Purdue. He just turned 21 years old. He's young. He's a true junior. There's a chance he could still be around in the second round. I don't know that he makes the 44, but if he were to make it to 33, 34, 35, is that someone the Browns would be eager to go get? He's a fun player, but I know some teams believe he's just kind of hit that ceiling of who he is. He's not a guy that you see a tremendous upside in, but you have a good feel for what you're going to get with that motor, with his hand skills, that initial burst off the edge. So Karloftis is one of those edge players that could creep into the second round and make you think about possibly moving up. And then, we've talked about him before, but Logan Hall from Houston, who, it's split around the league in terms, is he a pass rusher on the edge? Is he more of a three technique? I think regardless, that inside-out versatility is something that will appeal to this team. Just turned 22 years old, young for even a true senior, and a guy that's still growing, still developing. There's upside there, 6'6", 285 pounds. you feel good about who he is now, but also what he's going to develop into as he gets more coaching and he continues to develop his game.
It is the beast. All you have to be is an Athletic subscriber to go ahead and get it. It is the best that you're going to find.
That's right.
When it comes to any year of the draft, and especially 2022. It's no different. Dane, we thank you very much for the time. We'll talk to you later this week, my friend.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, gentlemen.
The great Dane Brugler, at DP Brugler on Twitter from The Athletic. And
Legend.
again, the author of The Beast, which you can see right here on the YouTube feed. Coming up next, Nathan and I, we go around the league. You're listening to the Cleveland Browns Draft Preview Show, presented by our friends at Bud Light on the University Hospitals Cleveland Browns Radio Network.
Again, Ken Carman and Nathan Zegura.
Begins on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Myself, Nathan Zegura, and Gerard Cherry will be with us for night one of the NFL Draft. Also, night two, Friday night, 7 p.m. to midnight. Yes, that's right, to midnight.
Just the twos of us.
Just the two of us, my
and
friend.
maybe some special.
Some special guests. Oh, what the YouTube folks can see you.
That's right. They know.
They know.
Pay attention to the scores.
You got to pay attention to that. Day 3, Saturday, 12 to 3, Nathan and Gerard. Next Monday, May 2nd, we have ourselves the Browns Draft Review Show.
Oh, baby.
That'll be with you at 7 o'clock next Monday. All right, time to go around the league. Fact or fiction, the Browns will make every one of their 7 picks.
Fiction. They're going to move around at some point. So, I interpret that to mean they're going to make all 7 picks as they are. No. I think they could draft 7 guys. They could draft 8 guys. I think they're going to try to get some picks back in the future drafts as well.
I interpret it as that they will make 7 picks, and I'm like, well, I don't know.
They could.
I mean, if it were because I'm thinking about it now. I'm going to second guess myself because if I'm thinking about it now, I'm going, well, the draft, you could always kick the can down the road. Well, I think your first pick's at pick 44. You're probably going to make that, or whatever, move around and still make that second round pick. But I think a lot of other teams might have the same idea, so you might be stuck where you have to make those picks. We'll see how that one goes.
Well, you have the 202 and the 6, 223, 246. I could see those being moved. If they really like this undrafted free agent class and feel like they've done a good job and they're well positioned to recruit some of the top undrafted free agents, I could see them trying to kick some of those picks into the future to pick up a 5th or a 4th in a future draft.
You can move compensatory picks?
You can trade any pick.
Okay, I just want to make sure because there was some questions before about whether or not you can move compensatory picks. Fact or fiction? No QBs will be taken in the top 10.
I think that's fiction. I just think it's the position.
Someone's going to do
Somebody's
something.
Somebody's going to do something, yeah.
I totally agree with you. Well, that's not as much fun agreeing with each other.
Sad.
All right, who will be the first wide receiver taken in the draft?
I would have said Garrett Wilson, but it just feels like Jamison Williams is going first.
Ooh, I thought you were going to say Drake London because I was like, oh my! I got a weird sneaking suspicion it might be Drake London.
I could see
People
that.
have fallen in love with that.
I think
guy.
it will be one of those 3, and I don't think there's anybody else in the discussion.
I agree with you there. I'm gonna say Drake London, then I'm gonna say Garrett Wilson, then I'm gonna say Jamison Williams.
Okay.
Boy, that kid can fly, can't he? I saw some video of him on NFL Network. I said video like I was like, I got sent some video.
You got a
No, I was
VHS.
watching-
You popped it into your VHS
I was
machine.
watching NFL Network during the show today, and I'm just like, I forgot just how fast he was. He turned that corner and went top speed. That
Gone.
kid can certainly fly. I know he got hurt, but he can certainly
Gone.
fly. Fact or fiction? There will be a big trade this weekend involving either DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, or Kyler Murray. That'd blow the lid off the draft.
I'm going to say fact, but I'm going to hit you with a hot take. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles, and it may not happen, but I think it will come out that the Eagles are going to do everything they can to land either Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson by the end of this draft. That's what I
Who
think.
do you know?
I don't know anybody in that regard.
Yeah, you know something.
I don't know
You
anything
don't
about
just
that.
say those things.
Well, listen, they haven't come to agreement on the extension, right? So, like, every day that goes by, and they have to be honest with themselves, I do think there's some evaluation that needs to happen in the AFC when you've got Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, Russ, Deshaun Watson, Burrow. Does Lamar Jackson, can he make a playoff run against quarterbacks like that when you feel like their offense has to play a very particular style of football?
They're telling me to break. You know something.
I don't know anything.
You've been talking to somebody.
I'm not talking to anybody.
Yeah, you spoke to somebody.
No,
All
no.
right, that was the end of it. That's the end of Around the League.
There you go.
Oh, I can't wait for the draft now. Out of
It might
nowhere.
be nothing.
Just a hunch the Eagles might go after Kyler Murray of all people. Oh, okay. Yeah, just a hunch.
I said or Lamar Jackson.
Or Lamar Jackson.
That's just because it's the way they operate.
You just woke up
They
this
have
morning
2
and felt
ones
that
in
way,
this
huh?
draft, 2 ones in the next draft, and Howie Roseman is quarterback aggressive. It makes sense. And if you're going to make a move in the NFC because the top 2 quarterbacks there might not be around for that long.
Just woke up that way and felt that way, huh?
Have I not been saying this for a while?
Amazing the intuition that he has. Oh, see, I didn't hear him before.
Have I been saying this for a while?
I'm sorry, Gibby.
Thank you.
I didn't realize that. You woke up 3 months ago and just felt that way.
That's
huh?
right.
All right, coming up next, we preview what's coming up during the NFL draft. That's right, it's Thursday, live from Las Vegas, and we will have your coverage right here. It is the Cleveland Browns Draft Preview Show presented by our friends at Bud Light on the University Hospitals Cleveland Browns Radio Network. It all starts Thursday night, 8 p.m., and we go till midnight because it's the first round of the NFL draft. Myself, Nathan Zegura, Gerard Cherry will be on with us. There could be so many different surprises. I apologize to Nathan. I did not know you brought up that theory a couple months ago.
I've been saying it for a while.
Apologize.
I just think everything feels very odd there, and the Eagles are a team that they are quarterback aggressive always. It just makes a lot of sense.
I'll credit you. I'm talking about that tomorrow on the Fan.
Go ahead.
I want to bandy about that because
bandy about it. See what people think about it.
I think Lamar has a world of talent. I think
He's
they got
stud. The guy was the MVP of the league.
They got snake bitten by injury. I'm not as big a fan of Kyler Murray as a lot of other people are.
I'm with you on that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, because for a second I thought you were going to surely you jest, and
No.
All right, unfair with
It
me.
feels
on
like
that
there's
one.
a little baggage that would come with him. Can be a little petulant, maybe. Very talented, but it also his second halves are just never as good as first halves. So now that may be on Cliff, but that may be on Kyler. I don't know.
You can't stay in the pocket, and you get halfway through the season, and attrition starts to take over. It's been the last 2 years.
Guess what? Not our problem.
Nope, not our problem. But what it will be, well, no. Night one, not our problem. At least not yet, because we don't have a draft pick, because we already made a big trade. But Tuesday or Friday night 2, 7 p.m. to midnight, myself, Nathan Zegura, pick 44. Will it still be at 44? Will they trade up? You're going to have to find out. You're going to have to listen to live draft coverage throughout the weekend, folks. Saturday.
Only place you can find out right
33. It's right here, noon to 3, Nathan and Gerard, and then we'll have the Browns draft review show coming up next Monday, May 2nd. We'll go over all the picks, all the machinations, and see just how much better the Browns got. If it's Andrew Berry in charge, and it is, I bet the Browns
15.
got even better. A big thanks to everybody. Jason Gibbs, our executive producer, Andy Roth, our technical
10,
producers, Meredith
9,
Kane and Earl Malden.
8,
4.
7,
Nathan Zegura, I'm Ken
6,
Carman. Thank you for
5,
listening. The University
4,
Hospitals, Cleveland Browns,
3,
Radio
2,
Network.
1.